Welcome to LawWorks, your local monthly TV law show where we discuss law-related topics and information that you can use. I'm attorney Mike Weber.
Good afternoon. Hello, my name is Daryl Crosthwaite. Our monthly show will feature the following: the Law News Docket, where we will present current related stories or events and how they affect us in our daily lives. We will discuss everything from changes in the law to helpful tips and reminders that you can use. Today's show will feature Mike Weber discussing motorcycle safety and law-related topics that you can use just in time for riding season.
The Guest Docket will feature monthly guests discussing their specialties. This month, I will interview Daryl, who will answer some questions on his background and one of his specialties, which is Social Security Disability Law.
Our FAQ docket will feature frequently asked questions on different subjects, sometimes related to guests that we will have on future shows. This month, I will present some frequently asked questions regarding Social Security Disability Law. Before we begin, Mike, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background?
Thank you, Daryl. My name's Mike Weber, and I'm from Cincinnati. I've been here all of my life. Our law practice is Weber, Dickey & Bellman up in Mount Auburn. I went to undergraduate at Case Western Reserve University, and I did my law degree at George Washington University in Washington, D.C. My specialty in law is injury law. I do workers' comp, motorcycle accident, and automobile accident law. For hobbies, when we're not practicing law, which is most of the time, I like to get out and ride motorcycles, and I also own a couple of race car teams. Daryl, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Thanks, Mike. I'm Daryl Crosthwaite, and I'm with the law firm of Daryl Crosthwaite. My office is located on Court Street in downtown Cincinnati, Ohio. I was born and raised in Northern Kentucky. I'm a graduate of Eastern Kentucky University and the Salmon P. Chase College of Law at Northern Kentucky University. My areas of concentration are workers' compensation, Social Security Disability, and personal injury law. I also am a college football official. I've officiated numerous high school and college football games, and I also like spending time with my two daughters and my wife, and my daughters are involved in playing soccer at a pretty high level, and I enjoy spending time with them.
Thank you, Daryl. Now it's time for our Law News Docket, the part of the show where we review the stories in the news that are law related and how they affect us. Spring has arrived and it's time to pull your motorcycle out of the garage, blow the cobwebs off, get the dust off, put some air in the tires, and get it ready to go riding. Here's some reminders for those of you who ride and some information that as an attorney I want you to think about. First off is motorcycle insurance. Motorcycle insurance is required in the state of Ohio. You have to be aware that just because you have an automobile that's covered, your motorcycle is not automatically covered. You have to be sure that you have separate coverage for your motorcycle. The minimum coverage for insurance in the state of Ohio is what's called 12,525, 12,500 per person, 25,000 per occurrence. But what you have to be aware of is that's probably not enough coverage if you cause someone to get injured. What you want to do is talk with your insurance agent and be sure that you get as much coverage as possible to protect you and your assets. You also have to be sure that as a motorcyclist that you have uninsured and underinsured coverage on the bike. That does not automatically come with a motorcycle like it does for a vehicle. So don't forget that. Remember, if you drive without insurance, it's very possible that if you get caught, you can lose your license and your ability to drive any vehicle. The second point I want to bring up for the motorcyclists is health insurance. You want to be sure, number one, that you have health insurance, but also be careful to be sure that there are no exclusions that exist when you are riding your motorcycle. It is known that some insurers will put in exclusions for what's called risky behavior injuries, and you have to be absolutely sure that you have health insurance coverage if you will get hurt on one of your motorcycles. Don't get caught out on that. Now, the last thing I want to bring up is Ohio's helmet law? Well, they don't really have a helmet law. The only helmet law that exists is if you're under 18, you have to wear a helmet, or if you've been riding for less than a year, you have to wear a helmet. But as an attorney and a motorcycle owner and a race car driver, I have been upside down. I have crashed everything that I own. And the one thing that I can tell you is the most important safety equipment that anybody has on a motorcycle or in a race car is a helmet. And my personal opinion is you need to think very long and very hard before you decide not to wear a helmet. There have been a number of studies that are out there that show that helmets are very, very effective. The National Health and Traffic Safety Administration has done a study that showed that helmets are 37% effective in preventing fatalities. So if there are 10 people that are not wearing a helmet that get killed on a motorcycle, 4 of those would still be with us today. There are also, in the same study, a finding that shows that they are 67% effective in preventing head injuries. So if there are 100 traumatic brain injuries or serious concussions, 67 of those would have been prevented if you would have worn a helmet. Now, one thing you have to remember, there are different levels of helmet certifications in the United States. The lowest level is what's called the DOT certification, and that is the minimum required by the United States government. There are higher levels of certification known as ANSI and SNELL. And for example, the helmets that we have here today are Arai helmets, and those are both SNELL and ANSI certified. Take the time to learn about the various certifications that you can have for your motorcycles, helmets, because the DOT is just the bare minimum. You want to have the best helmet that you can afford on your head if you were unfortunate enough to get into a crash. So remember, get out there, have a lot of fun this riding season, but be safe. I'll have a check-off list for preparing for the riding season later on in the broadcast. Thank you. Welcome to the Guest Docket. I'm going to interview Daryl Crosthwaite about one of his specialties, which is Social Security disability law. Daryl, tell us a little bit more about your background and what caused your interest in practicing law.
Thanks, Mike. As I indicated earlier, I graduated from Eastern Kentucky University down in Richmond, Kentucky, a political science degree. I then obtained my Juris Doctorate degree at the Salmon P. Chase College of Law at Northern Kentucky University. As of this month, I've been practicing for 25 years. My primary areas of focus are workers' compensation, Social Security, disability, and personal injury law. I think that I decided to become a lawyer. My mom kind of talked me into it at an early age because I was very argumentative with her and my father and my sister, and I think that's why I became a University of Cincinnati fan instead of a UK fan, because I always wanted to take the opposite position of everyone. So becoming a lawyer was a perfect fit for me.
Like the challenge there, huh?
Yes.
Why did you choose Social Security law as one of your focuses?
I like helping those who need help. I like helping those who want to help themselves. I started out initially wanting to be a prosecutor. I used to work for Judge Fred Cardellano in the Hamilton County Court of Common Pleas when I was in law school. And at first I thought I wanted to be a prosecutor. But after witnessing criminal trials, after talking to juries, watching the trials up close and personal, I decided that civil law was better suited for me. It's a challenge. It's like putting a big puzzle together where you have to take, the medical evidence. You then have to, depending on the judge and their little idiosyncrasies, try to figure out, what the best tactic and strategy is for your particular client.
Excellent. Kind of give us an overview of what types of Social Security law are available for the general public.
Well, thank you. There are disability benefits, Social Security disability benefits, pay benefits to individuals who have an impairment or a combination of impairments that are expected to last for a continuous period of 12 months or more or result in death. Social Security disability benefits, you usually see them with individuals who have worked all their life. They've paid into the system, Social Security taxes, and they've either been injured on the job or they've contracted some diseases, cancer, rheumatoid arthritis, other type of impairments and disabilities which prevent them from performing work on a full-time basis. There is also what is called SSI. Essentially for SSI, you have to prove the same thing as Social Security disability. You have to show that you have physical or mental impairments, a condition or a combination of conditions which is expected to last for a continuous period of 12 months or more. The difference with SSI is it is for those who have never worked or they are of low income and they have not put enough quarters of coverage into the Social Security system. You have to prove both for Social Security. You have to prove the same thing for Social Security disability and SSI, but disability is based on what you've paid into the system and SSI is based on need.
How do you qualify for either SSD or SSI?
Well, essentially, you can file the applications with the Social Security Disability Administration. You can do so either online. I believe that the website is www.ssa.gov. You can go online and file your application for benefits, for disability benefits on that website. Great thing about filing online is the fact that if you get tired, you don't have specific information, you can log out and then you can always try to get back on later with a re-entry number. You can also file by telephone. You can call Social Security Disability, matter of fact, or Social Security Administration. I actually had a couple appointments today that I scheduled for some people in June. You call, you set up an appointment, Social Security will call you, they'll ask you information over the telephone. You can also go in person to one of the local Social Security offices. Here in Cincinnati, there is one at 550 Main Street right in downtown by Government Square. There's another office on Reading Road up in Evendale, and I believe there's the office in Hamilton right off Winford Avenue up off the Fox Highway. And in order to file for those benefits, the more information you have about doctors, the jobs you performed, what you've done and why you can't work, names of hospitals, doctors, addresses, your impairments, the easier it'll be for you when you file your application.
What type of evidence would you suggest having if you go through this process?
Primarily medical evidence. The Social Security Administration, I've told numerous clients throughout the years that, they say, well, I can't work. I can't get up in the morning, I have pain, I can't lift more than 5 pounds, I can't walk for more than 5 minutes or stand for more than 5 minutes, but unfortunately some of those people haven't received treatment. Without medical evidence, it's going to be impossible to win your Social Security case. You have to be getting active medical treatment from a medical provider. The Social Security Administration does not want doctors to provide evidence saying Mike Weber's disabled or Daryl Crosthwaite's disabled.
That's not enough?
They don't want that. The determination of whether or not someone's disabled is Social Security's decision, the administrative law judge's decision, not the doctor's decision. What Social Security is looking for is evidence of a person's limitations. How much they can lift and carry, push and pull, sit, stand, walk, bending, stooping, carrying. Limitations that affect your activities of daily living. Things that you do around the house, cleaning the house, cooking, vacuuming, mopping, dusting, making the bed, going up and down stairs, things of that nature. So they're looking for all of those type of activities and medical evidence. You need to submit medical evidence from doctors, chiropractors, hospitals, physical therapists, and mental health specialists.
As you go through this process, do you approach those doctors as an attorney and request that information?
Early in my career, I used to request reports quite often from doctors on Social Security cases, and honestly, I found it ineffective. I think the best thing personally for me to do is I'll get the medical records, I submit them, and occasionally I will request that a doctor complete what's called an RFC, a residual functional capacity form, in which a doctor will list a person's specific limitations. You can do that both for physical conditions and also for mental health conditions.
Now, isn't there a process that Social Security Administration goes through?
Well, there's 5 levels of the Social Security system. The initial determination level is the first level, and usually it takes about 90 days to go through each level. The initial determination is the first level. Reconsideration is the next level. The third level is the administrative law judge hearing level. That, unfortunately, there is such a huge backlog with all levels of the hearing that it takes quite a while to get to a hearing. From the time you file for the hearing to the time you get the hearing is usually anywhere from 12 to 18 months. Then after that, you also have the appeals council. Then, depending on certain case, you could also file that to federal court.
All right. Do cases always go to hearing?
No, they don't. Actually, a lot of cases, and Social Security has made a really concerted effort to try to narrow the cases that actually have to go to hearing. There have been cases this year that I've won without a hearing, where you filed it in the first two levels. They're far and few in between. When it gets to the hearing level, there are a lot of judges that will issue on-the-record decisions. You send memos into the judges, and we have a great corps of judges here in Cincinnati. You send letters into the judges, and they will then look at the evidence, and if they believe that the evidence is supportive and documents a disability, they will issue an on-the-record decision. But going to a hearing sometimes isn't a bad thing, because sometimes when you get in front of a judge and a judge can actually see your client and judge their credibility and listen to their testimony, it usually works to their advantage.
If you are successful in obtaining Social Security benefits, how much do you receive? How do they calculate this?
Well, for Social Security disability, it's based on what you've paid into the system. You have to, everybody looks at their paychecks and they see the FICA and they see the Medicare tax that are taken out of your checks. And if you've paid into the system, you get a percentage of what you've paid into the system for disability benefits. For SSI, it's based on need. Social Security or SSI, Supplemental Security Income Benefits, I believe that the maximum this year for benefits, I want to say, is $716 a month. That varies, however, depending on your resources and your income. The more income you have, the more resources you have, the less you may get in SSI, and you can get a combination of SSI and disability benefits. You can also, and a lot of people don't realize this, that if you're receiving such benefits as workers' compensation benefits, you can also get a combination of workers' compensation benefits and Social Security disability benefits. Of course, there may be offsets between those two types of benefits.
Daryl, thank you very much. It's been very helpful.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Daryl. Since we've got you here today, it's my understanding the initial analysis process by Social Security is called the 5-step process. Could you maybe explain that for our viewers?
I sure can, Mike. Thank you. One of the most frequently asked questions I receive is how the Social Security Administration determines if a person is disabled. And here's a brief overview. And matter of fact, I'm going to use a recent decision that I received from an administrative law judge, and it specifically talks about what's called the sequential evaluation. At step one, the Social Security Administration or the administrative law judge must determine whether a claimant is engaging in substantial gainful activity. Now, the Social Security Administration defines substantial gainful activity as work that is both substantial and gainful. I know that sounds confusing, but substantial gainful activity is activity that involves doing significant physical or mental activities, and gainful work activity is work that is usually done for pay or profit, whether or not a profit is realized. People call me all the time and say, hey, Daryl, I would like to go back to work, or I am working, how much can I earn before it affects my Social Security? What I tell people is that you can earn up to $1,070 per month in gross wages before taxes, before it will start technically affecting your Social Security disability benefits. However, I always tell people that the more money you earn and the closer you get to that particular amount, the more scrutiny you're going to be under by Social Security. At step two, the judge of the Social Security Administration must determine whether the claimant has a medically determinable impairment that is severe or a combination of impairments that are severe. In other words, if you just have a broken leg, or you have a sprained finger, or you just have a low back strain that will ultimately resolve with treatment, that's not a severe impairment. However, if you have a herniated disc, you have certain conditions that prevent you from working on a full-time basis, or a mental condition, depression, anxiety, that could ultimately end up be considered a severe impairment. An impairment or a combination of impairments is severe if it significantly limits an individual's ability to perform basic work activities. Now, Social Security is also required to consider non-severe impairments when determining what work you can do and what limitations you may have. At step 3, the judge of Social Security Administration must determine whether a claimant's impairment or a combination of impairments meets what's called a listing of impairments. And what I mean by that is there are specific impairments that are noted by the Social Security Administration in the regulations, for instance, a herniated disc. If you have herniated disc with radiculopathy, with sensation down your leg, you have reflex loss, sensory loss, despite treatment, despite physical therapy. If you meet all of the specific requirements, the Social Security Administration or an administrative law judge could determine that you are automatically disabled without any further comment. The fourth level that you need to determine is whether or not you have the residual functional capacity to perform your past work. And what I mean by past work is work that you've done that is substantial for the last 15 years. If it's something you did, and you're 50 years old and it's a job that you held when you were 18 years old or 20 or while you were in college, they're not going to look at that. But if it's a job that you've held, that you've earned wages, that substantial wages, that they consider to be substantial gainful activity, they will consider that to determine whether or not you have the residual functional capacity to be able to go back and do that work. If they determine you do, that's the end of the analysis. On the other hand, if they determine that you cannot go back to your past relevant work, the final question that they will look at is whether or not you have the ability to perform any other work in the national economy on a sustained basis. And what I mean by a sustained basis is 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. If you have the residual functional capacity to perform work on a part-time basis, essentially you are disabled under most circumstances. If the administrative law judge of the Social Security Administration determines you cannot perform any other work in a national economy, then more likely than not, a judge or the Social Security Administration will conclude that you are disabled. Now for our final docket of the broadcast. What should you do, docket? Here's Mike Weber with some final suggestions on preparation for the bike season.
Well, the bike season is here. Here are some quick tips to get your bike ready to go out on the road. You want to be sure that your bike is ready to go. Most likely you want to take it up, have a mechanic do a full tune-up before the season starts. Even if you do that, you still want to check yourself. Check it yourself. You want to check to be sure that you've got a fresh battery. Put a new battery in there every year. You want to check to be sure that your gas hasn't been sitting around for a year. You want to check to be sure that your brake fluid is solid. One of the things is called T-clock, which means you want to check your tires and wheels, check your controls, check your lights, check your oil, check your chassis, check your kickstand. Remember that, T-clock. I also want to go through your riding gear. You want to check your helmet. Remember, your helmet's designed to crush upon impact. If you've had a tumble and you've hit that helmet, it's probably time for a new helmet. A long winter can make for some pretty rusty riding skills right now. And here's some tips to knock off the rust. Remember, you haven't ridden for a while, especially with this past winter. So work up to the bike. Take your time. Don't push it. Don't push it on corners. Be smart. And there's another thing, try a new skill builder this summer. One of the things that I've done many times and I really, really like is called a track day. It's taking your bike up to one of the tracks and it's an open practice, Mid-Ohio, Road Atlanta, all kinds of racetracks out there. Look it up on the internet and if you're interested, follow up on it. The state of Ohio offers advanced rider safety courses. If you have the opportunity and access to a bike, you may want to get out on a dirt bike and get a chance to get dirty, slide it around a little bit. You'll learn a lot about your riding. Another option is to look into some of the riding schools that are out there. So whatever you choose, it's a good opportunity to try to learn a new skill. So thank you.
Thanks, Mike, for those tips on preparing your bike and yourself for motorcycle season this summer.
Thanks for tuning into the show. Our next broadcast will be myself reviewing workers' compensation law and information that you can use.
And I will be reviewing sports safety and information that you can use during this summer's sports season.
Thanks again. We look forward to seeing you next month on LawWorks.